Hello today, my dear players. I do apologize for any background noise this time. I'm in a new location and I do not have good control over soundproofing and whatnot, even worse than my previous location, so I do apologize for that. And second thing, I forgot what the second thing I needed to say. Oh yeah, I'm sorry for not uploading last week. I have been doing lots of moving. It's not been easy. But regardless, let's get to this week's video. Today, we are going to be talking about another character being put in Jujutsukaisen and what their powers would be. First and foremost, how to say that? The character we're covering is Renji from Bleach. And I had a bit of fun with him. I think that his normal curse technique would be to summon a Shikigami. And the entire kind of purpose around his, and it would only be it would be a portion of a Shikigami. The idea is that he has access to one huge, incredibly powerful Shikigami that is Zabimaru. But through the use of his curse technique, he can summon only individual aspects or parts of Zabimaru instead of summoning the entirety of him. And these parts will behave like Shikigami. They will move around and do things that are somewhat wild, while at the same time it's kind of a combination where he's wielding them as if they're weapons, while at the same time these parts move somewhat independently of him. So it's like a constant struggle of using them. And his normal, the sort of lapse ability that he has, so to speak, for his curse technique, is that he summons a smaller form of his old Bankai, which is the bone snake idea, the bone snake tail. Have it coiling around and moving about. It's a bit smaller, though, as a default. He can make it bigger. He can choose to make it as big as his Bankai was properly. The problem is that costs more cursed energy to create, to pull out, but he can do it. And yeah, it could do all the same things as his Bankai could do, just on a bit of a smaller scale, unless he increases the scale. And there's not a lot of fancy things to this outside of just interesting movements and uses of it that we understand. This would definitely probably be a super interesting curse technique in Jujutsu Kaisen. It'd be super interesting to see this animalistic weapon kind of interacting against a lot of these other fighters and whatnot. Especially because Renji is a very capable martial individual. I think it would fit really well in Jujutsu Kaisen. And my sort of basis for saying that he has really strong martial abilities, that I believe in way back in the Soul Society arc, it was stated that Renji's Shikai, out of all the Shikai of this type, would be the hardest to master, the hardest to learn how to use. So yeah, I think it would be super interesting. See how he could use it. Use it as both a whip and animal companion at the same time. I could definitely see him also being able to do the blast from its mouth thing as well, as just a raw blast of cursed energy channeled through his Shikigami. But I think it would be I think he'd have a lot of trouble because Renji's entire thing is that he's like a pure martial individual over being that good at understanding fine-tooth control of things. So I could definitely see him knowing pretty much, like him only ever really developing certain parts of his curse technique just because of that, and never really figuring out any fancy uses. I could also see him just never learning most other aspects of jujutsu, like he'd only ever learn things about his curse technique and nothing else really. Yeah. And I think what would be interesting, getting into the reverse curse technique, is that if he can really only access different shapes and variants of the snake aspect via his normal curse technique, that in order to start accessing the monkey body parts, the monkey aspects, he has to activate the reverse curse technique, which is what I think the reverse curse technique would be. Is that instead of spawning, it's kind of like the idea that the Shikigami that is Zabimaru, part of its body is negative cursed energy, but a lot of its body is positive cursed energy. So the only way to summon the monkey parts of his body, which is most of it, you have to be able to use reverse curse technique. And thus, that is what I think Renji's reverse curse technique would be. Summoning the monkey arm that he has in his other Bankai. And, obviously, and we pretty much blatantly see how many ways that can be used when he uses it in the 1,000-Year Blood Work. It's wonderful. I love big monkey arm, grab, and smash. And yeah, unfortunately there's not that many interesting things to say about Renji's reverse curse technique. I will say, through combining reverse curse technique and normal curse technique, he could start doing some crazy kind of morphology happening with summoning the parts of his Zabimaru. I could definitely see all kinds of crazy shit. Maybe only summoning Zabimaru's hide over himself just to act as a shield. Not even summoning an individual arm, just like the torso hide over himself as a cloak to defend himself from an attack, or to defend himself against domain sure hit attacks. That would be really cool. Actually, another useful thing about the monkey arm would be that it just deals positive curse energy, positive energy damage. But on top of that, just now thinking about it, there could be a lot of interesting ideas, and that due to how martial Renji is and how reliant of a straight up fight that this type of curse technique is, I wonder if in this context there would be some aspect of being able to fuck up other people's curse techniques. Actually, he almost certainly could. Curse techniques often rely on some type of fulfilling of conditions, or using your hands in certain ways, or saying incantations of some variety. So I could definitely see Renji developing this fighting style with his Zabimaru Shikigami of just preventing people from using their more tricky aspects of their curse technique, prevent them from weaving hand signs, prevent them from saying their incantations. Just because I'm really kind of imagining that this is how Renji would end up fighting. Just like, no, we're gonna have a straight up fight. We're not doing fancy words. We're not doing shit. We're going at it. I imagine that Megumi would hate fighting him, because even though they both summon Shikigami, Renji would be a hard counter in fighting style, because he would just never let Megumi weave the hand signs. There's not much else to say, unfortunately, about curse technique and reverse curse technique for the boy. As for the only thing I'd say additionally is that even through like theoretical maximum use of his curse technique and reverse curse technique, I don't think he's ever going to be able to summon the entirety of Zabimaru. And it's just like a hard limit of the way the curse technique works. Like, it's never summoning the full Shikigami. That's just not the point of the curse technique, so to speak. His domain expansion, however, I think that's different. I think considering Zabimaru's focus on like a warrior spirit and fighting spirit and that kind of like mentality that Zabimaru as a Zanpakuto spirit had in Bleach, I think that's probably going to carry over for him as a Shikigami. And I think the domain expansion would essentially just, taking him where he lives, taking the enemy where in the innate domain where Zabimaru lives, and it would be I think the name would be I think calling it the Arena of Beasts, or maybe the Arena of Bestial Warriors, something like that. I think that probably works. Where I'm just imagining that it essentially just summons this huge clearing where there's tons of towering trees and just like kind of a bit of a clearing in the middle where like a proper fight can be held, but then there's plenty of towering trees around them. And and also the entirety of Zabimaru's body would be here alongside Renji. And Renji wouldn't have his weapons anymore. He wouldn't be summoning that. He would just be able to prompt, basically just be able to communicate effortlessly with Zabimaru within the domain. And I think it makes, I know like sure hit is important, is like a big thing, but I think actually I don't think sure hit makes the most sense, but I think actually a rule-based domain might work better for Renji in the way Zabimaru is, because this is so dependent on Zabimaru as a being. And I don't think the essence of Zabimaru would want the domain to be a sure hit domain, which Renji's having to contend with. So I think instead it would be a rule-based domain, and that the function of the rule essentially just allows Zabimaru to just be wherever Renji needs him to be, practically teleporting within this space, going from tree to tree. But that Renji has to sort of earn the right for that. I think what would be really cool is if Renji is that the rule of the domain just kind of prevents Renji or the opponent from activating any sort of curse technique. and then they have to fight straight up. And if Renji throughout that fight can prove to Zabimaru that he's worthy of winning the fight, then Zabimaru will join in on the fucking beatdown to just obliterate this guy. Now obviously this would be a lot harder in certain cases, and I think this obviously has a way to backfire on our boy Renji, but I think that just kind of fits with Zabimaru. Basically, yeah, I think that's it. The Arena of Beasts, and what it does is rule-based domain that just forces both Renji and the opponent to fight in a fair, straight-up martial fight. No techniques, no cursed energy, straight hands. And, or maybe they're given bamboo swords. That would be fun. That could be fun. But I don't think that's the most important aspect of this. But yeah, they fight straight hands. And Renji doesn't necessarily have to win. He just has to prove to Zabimaru that he's worthy of his help. That he's worthy of Zabimaru being earned, and I think that literally every time he opens his fucking domain, this is something he has to prove to Zabimaru. I think is what has to happen. Just because I think that just fits Zabimaru's attitude as a being. Because, like, if you remember in Bleach, like, the first Bankai that we see from Renji is a fake Bankai because Zabimaru just didn't think Renji, his own wielder, was worthy of the power of his Bankai. And that's after, years of them fighting together and shit. So I think Zabimaru is just that type of being who is ever critical of his wielder. It doesn't matter how many times he's proven himself. And I'm kind of up in the air whether Zabimaru might be willing to help the enemy or not. I think I'm going to say no. I think that even in the worst case scenario, Zabimaru just undoes the domain himself, in which case, Renji's wasted a use of his domain. But I think that's the worst. I think that's the worst outcome. I don't think Zabimaru is fighting against Renji. Just to make it not too shit. But yeah, and I would also kind of describe Zabimaru as up there with Maharaga level Shikigami, that kind of shit. And yeah, I think that's all I have for you guys today. I haven't come up with any ideas for what the name of the curse technique is. Maybe literally just snake and monkey. Maybe. Or bestial weapon, maybe? Something. I'll figure it out. It'll be in the thumbnail. But yeah. Hope y'all enjoyed listening to this. I apologize for this not being as good as usual and whatnot, but regardless, hope y'all enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe, and talk to y'all next time.